Evan Knappen.
And I'm Teddy Knappen.
And welcome to Gun Lawyer. You know, folks, we need to get back to basics. And when I talk about basics, I'm talking about our basic constitutional rights. It's really always important to step back and understand that the entire Bill of Rights is what protects us as gun owners. And we love and cherish the Second Amendment, but all the amendments go to work protecting us and ultimately our gun rights as well. And directly tied in is, of course, our First Amendment rights, freedom of speech, ability to communicate as we do on this show. Fourth Amendment, protecting our property search and seizure from the government. Fifth Amendment, against self-incrimination. Sixth Amendment, for example, right to an attorney, the very thing that Gun Lawyer is about. I mean, these are all critical and important. And every time I look and I see other countries that aren't blessed with a Bill of Rights to the Constitution, and you see the abuse that takes place, you just have to point it out, because we are blessed to live in the United States and to have these rights, and to not only have these rights, but to utilize these rights. So I was just caught a story here that I want to share with you, and this is from Bearing Arms, and it is about, the title is A UK Man Arrested for Possessing Gunpowder Recipe. It's by Tom Knighton. And, you know, this article is based off an article that appeared in the UK Defence Journal by Craig Langford, and it was dated November 2nd. Get a load of this, folks. The UK has gone so far out of control when it comes to no even illusion of having the rights that you and I take for granted every day. Here is just a great example of it. And right from this article, it says, a 49-year-old man from Leeds has been sentenced to 3 years and 9 months in prison for possessing a handwritten recipe for gunpowder. That's right.
Was his name Guy Fawkes?
Yeah, that's a good one, Teddy. But it was just a recipe for gunpowder. And he was sentenced here because he's going to serve an additional 4 years on extended license. I guess it's like a probation as well, or after, or parole. I'm not a UK attorney, but then and be subject to serious crime prevention order for 5 years. So he has this other order hanging over his head as well, along with terrorism notification requirements for 10 years, because he admitted, this guy Gilbeard, admitted to possessing information likely to be useful to someone committing or preparing an act of terrorism under Section 58 of the Terrorism Act. The document was discovered at his home during an intelligence-led search by West Yorkshire Police on May 28th. Detective Chief and Superintendent James Dunkerley, head of counterterrorism, in a statement said officers were concerned to discover a handwritten recipe for black powder during a search of Gilbeard's home in May. A recipe later verified by experts as potentially viable. Can you believe this, folks? And then the chief added, possessing information about the manufacture of explosives will always raise serious questions. And Gilbeard has chosen not to explain or defend the presence of the recipe in his home. Instead, he pleaded guilty to possessing information useful to a person preparing for an act of terrorism. Can you believe this? I mean, look at the lack of rights in the UK. First of all, lack of rights concerning possession of information. Folks, we have a First Amendment right. If you want to possess the recipe, the information on how to make gunpowder, you may do so in the U.S. You can go online right now, go to WikiHow, It explains in detail how to make gunpowder. You can watch the damn Star Trek episode with Kurt where he's fighting that monster and actually makes gunpowder in the episode. Remember that one? I mean, come on. The recipe for gunpowder is criminalized by having just the knowledge. It didn't say he did anything. It didn't say he was charged with using it or even attempting to use it. Just having the information, folks. Criminalizing information. Now, you may say, well, good thing that can't happen here. Yet, New Jersey is already doing it. Not to this extreme, but doing it by banning information that can show computer information on how to build a firearm, on how to make or 3D print a gun. The mere possession of that data. So don't think it can't happen here to this extreme. It can. Furthermore, he is being convicted here. This is right according to the chief, because what does it say? Gilbeard has chosen not to explain or defend the presence of the recipe. Oh, we have this little thing in America called the Fifth Amendment. A right. You have no obligation to explain crap in America. You don't have to explain a thing. You want to have the recipe for gunpowder? You can have the recipe for gunpowder. You don't have to explain why you have it. Can you imagine? This is what these people live under in that police state. It is insane. And yet we are right on the fringes now of suffering under the same fate. We already see examples of it, just not to this extreme. We're seeing the weaponization of our justice system against gun owners. We're seeing the abuses. Let me just tell you, it's outrageous. But, there's a lot of good reason to have the recipe for gunpowder. Plenty of good reasons. Maybe you want to make your own gunpowder for muzzleloading. So what? Maybe you want to be a prepper in case this stuff one day hits the fan. Maybe you want to make it. There's plenty of lawful reasons you may want to make gunpowder. I mean, but you don't have to have an obligation to explain it. And maybe you don't want to make it, but you just want to know how in case you ever do. Imagine that. Or maybe you want it because you want to write a novel, or you want to write a book, or you want to understand the mechanics of it. Who cares? Knowledge is knowledge. It's one of the things about having that First Amendment, supposed to protect. And there's a lot of really fascinating information out there that as gun owners and folks that want to protect their rights and want to prep and prepare, there is really a lot of books out there that essentially they try to suppress but can't because we have the First Amendment right.
I will say this also kind of reminds me of I think it was a Supreme Court case where I think it was a newspaper that put out how to make like an atomic bomb. That was their whole, I remember, and that was a very famous, I'm trying to remember the name, but it was the push where they basically outlined how to do it, and they went after the newspaper. And one of the arguments was it seemed highly unrealistic for someone to create an atomic bomb. So I don't know if they would ever try to use that and say, well, it's really realistic because it's super easy. So I don't know if that would at least protect or provide some safeguards.
The hard part is getting, of course, the uranium. Except if you remember from Back to the Future, the Libyans, right? The Libyans, because they, But this is, So, I mean, the science of building an atomic bomb even is out there, but doing it's a whole other thing. And anyway, I'm not even talking about weapons of mass destruction. We're just talking about good old gunpowder here. Just gunpowder. And criminalizing and years in prison for simply having the recipe for gunpowder. I mean, it's just insane if you think about it. But yet, New Jersey is not that far from that. And that's the scary part. It really is. I mean, they have there are laws on the books now in Jersey that regulate firearm information. Regulate it to the degree of what you can literally have and download and possess in that data form. Now, so far they haven't extended it to printed material. And of course, when you have a printed book, it's not in data form. Now, you can, of course, go online and you can find all this information online very easily. How to make gunpowder, like right there in WikiHow. All the steps, right in WikiHow. Everything you need to know to make gunpowder, right there, in easy to read, easy to understand steps. But there were books that have been prevalent out there. Probably some of the best books were the improvised munition black books. Now, keep in mind, these books were originally made by the U.S. government, the Frankfurt Arsenal. And Desert Publications reprinted them, and they put them out. The Desert Publications are probably the best versions of the Frankfurt Arsenal government manuals. And these were improvised munitions black books that literally tell you how to make gunpowder, how to make primers, how to make guns, how to make explosives, how to make everything. Everything's in those books. How to do it by improvising to make them. This is U.S. government material out there because it's not copyright. It can be reprinted and put out there because government doesn't have a copyright on what they do. And this is information that is and may be of interest to preppers. I mean, if you've never looked at the black books, they're really cool. They're really interesting. They're fascinating. And they were designed so that if our forces were in countries and jurisdictions and such where weapons weren't readily available, that you could train, the folks fighting with us to fight the enemy, and how to make these things. I remember way back in college when I wrote a column in college. I took a page out of the black book that showed how to build. This is way back. We're talking probably over 40 years ago now, folks. I took a page out of the black book, the Frankfurt Arsenal black book, the government FM, right on it, that showed how you make a 9mm pistol out of a pipe and wood. And it was the government information on how to do it with illustration. And we printed it in the college newspaper and wrote the best argument against gun control. Because look, you can always make a gun. And needless to say, that did cause a ruckus that was printed. But there it is. It's information. It's information. And now, what's interesting about that statement that I made as an editorial decades ago in college is actually proving out to be true, because today, with the advent of all the printing and 3D printing and do-it-yourself and improvised guns that can become just as effective and made as normal guns, the gun rights suppressionists are freaking out because it defeats their plan of disarmament, right? Doesn't it? So isn't that what the ultimate idea was anyway behind it? So this is what they're trying to suppress. They don't want the ability to have guns, no less guns, that can be made by individuals and individuals being able to fend and protect themselves. And they want to require that the only gun you can possess is made by a manufacturer in America, that they can regulate and control and register and know. But does that really add to our freedom? I don't think it does. I think the idea of being free is government not having that control, not having that knowledge, not knowing. That's what becomes a check on the tyranny. And that's what our founding fathers envisioned when they put our Second Amendment in. I mean, look at what's going on in the UK. Look at not only the crushing of their rights, but the crushing of the soul of their country. Look at what is going on there. You can see that these policies are leading to. It's leading to a place I wouldn't want to live in, that's for sure. And yet, New Jersey isn't that far behind in reality. So the fight is on. The fight is on for our rights. But if you want to protect yourself, why not have information that you have, that you want to keep, just in case? It's good to have information. Information, knowledge is power, as they say. And there are a lot of sources and resources out there for you to have the knowledge. And it's something that is, in effect, part of our First Amendment rights as well as our Second Amendment rights. And let me tell you about our good friends at We Shoot. We Shoot is a indoor range in Lakewood. It is a range where Teddy and I shoot, get our training. We Shoot is a fantastic place. Make sure you pay it a visit. We Shoot is located in Lakewood, conveniently off the Parkway right there in central Jersey. You know, these ranges are resources. These are great resources. We need a place to shoot. If you don't have a place to shoot, it's hard to exercise your rights. And they are a premier provider of that very resource that we need. They have fantastic bargains and deals, and they have all the best stuff in their pro shop and the greatest instructors. And I'm not just saying that. I'm a fan and a customer, and so is Teddy, and we love it there. So I want to give our highest recommendation to We Shoot. You can check out We Shoot at WeShootUSA.com. Make sure you pay them a visit. You'll be glad you did. They'll become your new favorite range. I can assure you of that. And we are knee-deep in a big fight in Jersey. Unfortunately, as you know, the Republican, Jack Ciattarelli, did not succeed in winning. And of course, that is depressing for us because in New Jersey, it means we're still going to be subject to the oppressionists, to those that have an agenda to oppress our Second Amendment. So that means that we have to fight even harder. That means that we have to be even more vigilant. It is not time to give up. It is time to fight harder. And the way you fight harder is through your state association, the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs. In unity, there's strength. The association is fighting on multiple fronts, not just the political in terms of elections, but also the legal. They're in the courts challenging the laws as we speak. We are part of a number of lawsuits challenging the ban on assault firearms, on the carry killer law, on large capacity magazines. There are lawsuits throughout the country. The association is a part of a number of these critical lawsuits to New Jersey. This is major for us to have this group defending us, and you need to be a part of it. This is how we're going to see the change. And believe it or not, as depressing as it is that we were not successful in changing the governorship to a governorship of Jersey that actually supports and defends the Second Amendment, we still are making progress, and we're making progress judicially. And we have the Supreme Court now having taken 2 cases that will be decided, 2, not just 1, but 2 Second Amendment cases, and we're going to see even more. And these are the groups that are behind these lawsuits to help expand our rights and expand our Second Amendment. So make sure that you belong to the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs. It's anjrpc.org. You'll receive their news alerts and email alerts, and you'll be able to take action and be aware of the shenanigans taking place down in Trenton. I also want to remind you to make sure you own a copy of my book, New Jersey Gun Law, the Bible of Jersey Gun Law. It's over 500 pages, 120 topics, all question and answer. I will be shortly putting out an update because we're going to be facing some laws that I expect to proceed. We got a big fight on our hands, and it's going to be pretty bad if these laws do pass. So brace yourselves and make sure you protect yourselves now, because New Jersey's gun laws are an insane matrix of which many traps are out there for law-abiding citizens to be turned into criminals. You want to learn how to navigate that system. I've written that book for you to do that very thing. So go to evannappen.com and get your copy of New Jersey Gun Law at evannappen.com. You'll be glad you did. And when you did, scan the code on the front, and you will get into our free private subscriber base, and you'll get updates, and you will also be able to access the 2025 comprehensive update that includes a standalone chapter on sensitive places. Really good stuff, important stuff. So, Teddy, what do you have for us today in Press Checks?
Well, as you know, press checks are always free. And look, we had the big election night, fine. So I thought maybe a nice palate cleanser would be good, and check out our good buddies at The Trace and see what latest insanity they're trying to pump out and convince people of. And I found one that I couldn't. I had to reread the title because I thought it was. I thought it was a Babylon Bee, to be very honest. How do you prepare kids for possible school shooting without traumatizing them? Yeah. So to give you a little bit of anyone who went to school, the shelter in place, get down, go under the desk, the very classics, move to the corner. They are now looking at trying to find other means without traumatizing the children. This is their focus. And this is an article by Chip Brownlee. Proponents say the drills teach situational awareness and can save lives, but research is far from clear on whether the drills actually make students safer in a real emergency. Wonder if there's other solutions that could be done to help stop school shooters. Moving on. What experts seem to all agree upon is the drills have potential to traumatize students rather than empower them, especially when the school uses realistic simulations like fake gunfire or deception, which I remember going through school. I didn't hear my principal firing off a blank gun as he's wandering through the school, but the utter insanity that these people come up with. They report that active shooter drills can still be especially difficult for students, teachers, and staff who experience violence in the home. Oh, yes. Gotta, that's the bigger. See, you see them writing about that where we gotta deal with, this is their push again, red flag alert. This is their violence in the home. They always like to go for that instead of addressing the actual issue, which is, I don't know, school shootings. But, as they go in from there, they go through following up messages from texts. About 20% of the students feel the drills made them scared. 13% feel that they were stressed or anxious. During a quote-unquote active school shooting, they may feel anxious. God. And this is the one bit that I absolutely, what really takes it away from me. The answer, they say, according to, we don't really know what makes drills effective. They admit it. They have no answer. They try to say, like, some schools say we need to have sit-downs, other wide variety of actor schools define, carry them out, have communications with this kid, have simple classroom conversations without addressing the actual school shootings throughout the article. I mean, things like actual security. You mean something like that? Like actual security in a school. Imagine that. Imagine arming the teachers. Yeah. Oh.
Did you ever talk about arming the teachers, Teddy?
Oh, thank you for bringing that up because I certainly did. And I actually wrote a paper in my high school and my teacher was aghast at the very idea of me suggesting he be armed during an active school shooting.
How dare you suggest that a teacher be armed?
Yeah, it's one of those where I'm very much disgusted. And funny enough, I even found this from Get Safe and Sound, the armed guards in school statistics, which, by the way, in 2023, at least 60% of them have one security staff and one armed officer. And for high schools, it's 82.1% have at least one or more armed security on their campuses. So very clearly, there is a push for armed security, actual solutions, but I will give Texas credit. This comes from the Texas Tribune. The Texas Republicans wanted to arm school teachers, and they actually created what's called the School Marshal Program to allow educators to carry weapons inside. And this is the heart of the issue, and this actually addresses the facts. Unfortunately, only a certain amount of districts actually wanted to participate in the program, where they broke down the numbers, where it was just only 84 of their school districts out of the 1,200 opted into the program, and where there's only 361 actually became licensed under the program versus the 9,000 on campuses. So this is the bigger issue. There needs to be a culture of arming yourself to defend. You need the teachers need to see this as like, let me be there to defend my school, defend the children, actually willing, and it's that culture that in our country where guns are part of our culture. That's a fact of life. They need to realize that. And instead of just being the victim and running potential stressful drills in their view, actually arming themselves to defend their workplace and defend the kids. So it's quite disgusting.
And all this can somehow get traced to a story by a single author, huh? Way back. Who was it, Teddy, that helped inspire these school shooters? Who was one of the number one inspirations?
That's very simple. Stephen King, of course.
Stephen King, Rage. Yeah. The book Rage.
Which he's already crashing out online after all the other insanity.
Now, when he wrote Rage, he had a different name, right? What was his?
Oh, yeah. I forget the name, but
Bachman?
Yeah, he's something along the line, Bachman or something.
Richard Bachman.
He knew what he was writing, but of course he tried to hide it. And by the way, he pulled that book off of shelves after admitting it has nothing to do with school shootings, even though he pulled it off the shelves. So,
but yet, all
take
these
that as you will.
How many of these school shooters have been found with that book, Rage?
I remember a good chunk of them. We could pull back the article when we first talked about it, but this is the other part I will address. And this is catching on because, of course, now every town jumped on it. Every town research. Arming the teachers introduces new risk into schools, where they list off their reasonings. Teachers cannot and should not be expected to perform their job as a trained law enforcement officer. Okay, first off, what the police are doing? What, shooting about 50 rounds for their qualifications?
Trained.
Are you? Yeah, that training. You mean the teachers can't go to the range and do 50 rounds in a range,
or
to
just
get
be
on
taught
paper?
Very important training for this particular situation. They don't have to go out and be law enforcement officers, which can require training in many different areas. They just need to be trained for this one scenario and how to deal with it. And that's the problem here with the Trace and with the anti-Second Amendment crowd, is that they constantly reject actual solutions to push their agenda no matter what. So they can't say ever that having a gun would actually be helpful. Can't ever say that. Can't ever admit that. Nope. Do every kind of song and dance and workaround they possibly can come up with to ever say that actually having a firearm was a good idea. They never do that. So this is why you see these false arguments come out of them, these laughable statements come out of them, when the reality of what is demanded in the face of violence is violence. And they want to call it gun violence as a pejorative, but guns themselves are not violent. It is people who are violent, and violence can be good and violence can be bad. And the way you stop bad violence is with good violence. And that's a reality of a violent world. Okay? There's good and there's bad. And if you refuse to acknowledge it, if you refuse to admit it, then what you end up with is good people suffering instead of being protected. And that's what we see happening. And that's what they help to continue. They continue with their lies that end up costing people lives because real solutions then don't get implemented. And that's the real shame of it is because they just politicize it.
And to really dive it into the politics of it, the American Federation of Teachers and the National Education Association, the teachers' unions, they are the ones who are pushing back and saying, don't arm them. So you see the culture right there. It's the elitists of the unions, all the heads of the administrators, these ones, because they know they want to keep having mass shootings because that's their blood dance. That's the only way they will ever win. They'll ever push for gun control is they want more mass shootings, and that's a fact.
It kind of seems that they do. They look forward to it for political because they want no, they want nothing more than to have some other rallying point at whatever the cost may be. It's pretty disgusting because all it takes is any act that becomes newsworthy. Within seconds, they're blaming guns. Even if guns aren't involved, they're blaming guns. They just jump on it any chance they get. Everything is just a political vehicle to try to oppress our rights. And we have to stand up and say, you're wrong. And that's why we're here doing this very podcast. And one of the other reasons we're doing this podcast is because we like to talk about the GoFu, which is the gun owner F-up. And GoFus are expensive lessons that individuals learn that you can now learn for the cheap. You get to learn them for free because you're listening to Gun Lawyer. So, Teddy, what is this week's GoFu? You know what the GoFu is. What is it?
The GoFu, it
is about when individuals fill out applications and what happens.
Oh, yeah. It's falsifications. Yeah, that's always the big issue for people is never falsify on the form.
We run into this in practice often, and it's something that I just want to make sure our listeners are really aware of. When you fill out a gun application, make sure your answers are accurate and true. Don't just guess, because falsification of the application, you putting the wrong answer, even though it wasn't intentional, will lead to your license being denied, and you are exposed to criminal charges of falsification, third-degree crime in Jersey, up to 5 years in state's prison. Take this application process seriously. Make sure your answers are absolutely correct. If you have questions about a certain question, find out in advance how it needs to be properly answered. We get falsification issues all the time coming into the office where individuals just innocently make a mistake. They thought this, they didn't understand the question, and it is extremely unforgiving in New Jersey. Please be extra careful. Don't become a GoFu when you're filling out your gun applications. If you have any issues or questions, get them positively answered in advance. We can't emphasize that enough, folks. And this is Evan Nappen and Teddy Nappen reminding you that gun laws don't protect honest citizens from criminals. They protect criminals from honest citizens.
Gun Lawyer is a Counterthink media production. The music used in this broadcast was managed by Cosmo Music, New York, New York. Reach us by emailing evan@gun.lawyer. The information and opinions in this broadcast do not constitute legal advice. Consult a licensed attorney in your state.